Esiet sveicināti Latvijas Neredzīgo biedrības, jauniešu organizācijas podkāsta Starp redzi un mums desmitajā un noslēdzošajā sērijā, kurā mēs runāsim par vizuālās informācijas svarīgumu jaunatnes darbā. Šodien pie mums ir ciemiņi. Mums ir Liia no Muhu jauniešu centra, mums ir Linda un Dinārs, kur pārstāv mūsu jauniešu organizāciju, un Linda ir arī pieredze strādājot citos jauniešu organizācijās. Un mēs šodien pāriesim arī uz angļu valodu, un podkāsts būs pārsvarā angļu valodā. Hello everyone. So I did a small introduction, but maybe someone wants to add something.
Hello.
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 Cool. So as I was saying, we're going to talk today about the importance of visual information in youth work. So maybe I can start with Liia. Liia, you have the most experience, and I think for you it's the most important because you work with youngsters who don't have any sight disabilities. So how often and how big of a percentage of the materials you use are visual, and also methods that you use are visual?
I think almost all of them, because when you do a workshop, you usually write something down on a whiteboard, or you use cards, or I don't know, even if you use Legos for something, they're also even though they are tactile, they're still visual. You choose the colors, you choose the shapes and stuff like that. So it's a lot of the youth work that we do is actually visual.
Okay, Linda. Did you use when you were working in a youth center, did you use any visual information when you were working there?
No.
Not really. Okay. But with the youngsters you were working with, they didn't have any sight disability, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Dinārs, I think you have our younger youth organization is the youngest in terms of experience, but as far as we have worked, this is 9 months now. Do you feel that there are methods that you have come across that use visual information that can't be adapted for us, or you just skip them in general?
Well, information, most of the information can be brought to a textile form or audio form. So we don't usually have a problem where something is visual and we can't change it so blind people can use it. I personally haven't yet come across something that we can't do. I guess we also haven't really done something that is heavily visually based, because we think of stuff that everybody can do, whether you're blind or not. So, for example, I guess if we tried movie nights or something like that, then it would be more difficult. But then again, there are movies with narration, where they explain what's going on in the movie, right? I guess right now we haven't come across a situation where we couldn't adapt.
And I think also Liia has made an excellent homework for you to have already adapted methods, but we're going to talk about them in a minute. But if we talk about visual, I wanted to have a bit of intro and then ask Liia about your experience, because when I did the first Erasmus project, which was 5 years ago with our blind society, there was this thing that we had a training and they were really pushing this narrative that we need to use non-educational methods and youth work methods, and most of them were visually based, using Dixie cards for reflection, using stickers and stuff. And obviously for me, because I already had worked with people who have sight disability, I already kind of knew that this is not going to work. So the only thing that we actually did use was role playing, and in the report they were asking, so why didn't you choose any other methods? And it's it's visual, right? So I remember you had a bit of a, I wouldn't say a freak out, close to it, when we started working together, which was 3 years ago. But I think you had the same brain freeze, what to do and how to work, right?
Yes. So it was 4 years ago actually.
Time flies.
Yeah. And when we prepared our first youth exchange together, it was name games. Normally name games are about how the other person looks like. You connect the name with the face. And so it was like really like a challenge to figure out stuff that is more about sound.
And also icebreakers, because I know loads of icebreakers are tell your name and make a movement. Yeah, how like that is not also accessible for us. But yeah, and also I think it's important, for example, if we had as we have had a week-long experience, how to be so it's not repetitive and it's not boring enough. Yep. But I think now we can kind of move on to what we have done in terms of this project, because this is amazing and I'm so proud of all of us. So Liia, you and Kadri, because you have made the most of the work. So what we have done is that since you already had worked with us previously, I think the first and the biggest thing and the tool set that we have, and we already kind of practiced it today, is the reflective figures, I would say. Those are really, really successful. Maybe, Dinārs, you can have comments about that?
Yeah, that's actually a very good way of a person almost connecting to the object and adding some emotions to it. There's all kinds of different objects there. They differ in shape, in texture, in also the size. So you can really find something that you can connect more. And you can also use your imagination, to explain to everybody else around you, why you chose that object. And when people get to use imagination, that's great. That's why I like the objects personally.
But even individually based one, traditionally they use Dixie cards, and Dixie cards are really abstract. So you actually have to explain why did you pick a card, for example, of a monk on the moon with a pink guitar, for example. They are really absurd. I'm just guessing. Liia, maybe you can talk through us the process, because part of them are 3D printed, part of them are textile, and also different in colors. That's also important for us, but also different in textile and in shapes. So how was the process for you?
So the process, I first start with why we did it. Because in non-formal education, what you do or what you learn really comes with the end reflection. And yes, we use a lot of these cards in our youth center, but so something to do, something better for your association to use.
But I think it's also really an interesting thing to use, even if you don't have people with sight disability, because Dixie cards have been around for so many years when I was a youngster participating in youth projects. Many years ago.
No, you're still young.
You too. No, but I mean, they tend to get annoyed, and I remember doing this method once is fine. Second time you're annoyed.
That's true.
Third time you're just and also because it still has images on it, I think it's easier if you want to be really abstract about your feelings. It's easier to be a pink triangle than to be a card, or I don't know, an octopus, or what we ever had a spiky thing. And it's easier because it's it's not less complicated.
Yeah, that's true. So the process, how we did it or why we did. Okay, we explained the why, but the thing is, I think it was in the summer when we had the youth exchange, and at one point I was okay, tactile materials, and 3D printing. And I think one of the youngsters also said...
I think it was when we were in RTU, the technical university. They had the 3D printing, so we were ooh, that's a good thing.
Yes. So, and at first you start to think about how to create the things that can actually make sense for the blind youngster, And at one point we had a big box of fabric in the youth center. There was some leftovers from a really cool local seamstress. Yeah, and it was 3D printer fabric. Okay, let's put them together. Sometimes the ideas just click, but to use different animals or different shapes, and I think it works for all the youngsters.
Yeah, for everyone. And I think it's going to be a really useful toolkit for our youngsters to use. Maybe Dinārs and Linda, you can comment on that, because we have part that is 3D printed and part that is fabrics and different kind of shapes and tactile. Which ones did you like better and why?
The fabric ones. For me personally, texture is very important. So fabric ones, or some that were like woolish type, like almost like an animal fur. That's the object I picked. So
So you like fluffy things.
Yes. Pink fluffy unicorns.
Linda, do you have any comments?
Es piekrītu visam, ko saka Dinārs.
So Linda is agreeing with everything Dinārs is saying. Okay. Okay, and the other thing that we have done, like again, Liia and Muhu, Noortekeskus, our youth center, has done is that we have a new game now that we already have tested. So we have a bingo, and that is again a unique product. But I think also with bingo, as in with any cards, we can still use them in different ways, not just like in general sense. So maybe we can talk about, for example, because at the moment in our youth center we have Uno cards who also have Braille, and we have bingo. So I think those are two things. Oh, we also have Monopoly and stuff like that. But
and
those are
playing cards, just the regular playing cards as well.
But this can be used in different techniques as well, like in the same reflection stuff or anything else. You can just use the same cards that you already have. And if you're creative at the moment, I think we have a good setup to start to do youth work. So maybe, Liia, you could talk about some of the methods they could use. Like, okay, obviously reflection is one, and this is good for after activity or before activity. Maybe something else?
So what about the game night or like real bingo night with, prizes and stuff like that? Because gamification is something that really gives motivation in a different way. So it's like...
they do. I think game nights are the most popular things we do, right?
You see?
Board games.
Well, by the statistics, it's theater nights. But in game nights, we usually do icebreakers. But now we have new objects, so I think the youth will like them when we have some new activities. We'll definitely try the reflection objects. Because before we usually had like typical Erasmus project style icebreakers, like hand the toilet paper to the next person, and then you pick some pieces from the toilet paper, and depending on how many pieces you have to say that many facts about yourself, or different types of where you stand in a circle and basically get to know each other more. So now with these new objects, I think it will be an interesting experience. I don't know how it will go. I imagine that some people may get a bit stuck on choosing the object and really connecting to it, but we'll see how it goes.
I think if they understand I know people have sometimes, if they experience for the first time, it's hard for them to understand how they reflect to the subject. But if they go, for example, if you have some people who haven't figured it out yet, you just like let them listen to everyone else, and once they hear the reasoning behind it, it's like, oh, okay, so it's that simple. So I don't have to be like psychologically like deep into thoughts why I chose it. But sometimes it goes to trippy as well. You talked about theater nights. That's also really interesting. And theater and role play is actually one of the foundations of youth work and non-educational education. So do you have specific subjects for that, or is it just like free road?
With theater nights, it is role-playing most of the time, and also like role-playing based games. So it can be anything from role swapping, where, for example, it's a 3-player game, and there's a judge who will say swap a role. And if you, for example, were playing as an officer and the other person was playing as a prisoner, you have to swap roles with the other person. And now you have to pretend that you're a prisoner or something like that. But also, I liked the part about like theater nights and also like fantasy, almost like that. Because what 3D printing unlocks is that we can make games with specific fantasy in mind. Like a group of people are very interested to make a Dungeons and Dragon type of game, which at first I was a bit surprised about that people are that interested in coming together and making a game for themselves. Then I understood, like, it's fantasy, it's imagination, and that's what people want. So with 3D printing, I think that's gonna be very important.
That's a good crossover to my question I had in mind when you were talking, because I was thinking theater nights, and in theater also visual information is really important, and especially if you do role plays, how do you get into character? So you get into character by using different, hats and stuff, so attributes. So how do you assess the importance of visual information in terms of theater nights? Because obviously we have people who are partially blind, we have people who are blind completely. So how do you think how important it is, for example, if a police hat is blue, or if it's just a regular hat and we just put it on and say that is a police hat?
Well, it's really more important, like, is the person in character? Like, you don't need a police hat to feel like you're really in the role and understand that that person is acting as a police officer, for example.
I think this is an interesting point. Have you done theater nights, Liia?
No.
Because I think it is, you said it's not important for them to get in role, but if a person sees and visual information is really important for them, and especially if there are mirrors in there, if you don't see your character in your reflection, you can't get into a character. I think I used to do theater when I was in school, and I went to Germany, and I did this class with theater that is in masks. And what I discovered is when you have your mask on, you can't see your face, and you can't see pretty much anyone else because the eye holes are really narrow, and you just get into character so much quicker. And it's just like you're not stopped by your insecurities anymore, because you're like, no one's gonna recognize me anyway. So for me, it was so much easier to play and be opened when you actually play the theater and you play your part, because you can kind of reach beyond what you can do if you see yourself. So I think this is a really interesting point for you, because this is something where theater helps, because for you to get into a character, you only need the information. You don't need to have the visual information.
Yeah, like we of course have props, like different types of hats, and if people want, they can use props. But nobody really asks for props, because I guess it's mostly related to that our main source for a lot of people is not visual information. So we more listen to the voice, and also like we more listen to like what they're talking about, and especially with the tone. Like, for example, if we return again to the police officer, like it's more of a serious voice, like an authoritarian voice, and blind people and people who are visually impaired tend to pick up on that very quickly, and they're like, yes, okay, that is a person who is either important or has an important role, and the rest comes from the story, basically. So they don't need that visual information like a police officer had. Of course, if you are primarily based on like visual senses, then if you see a police officer hat, you will instantly understand. And
yeah, but I think for you it's easier to, like, not easier, but it goes beyond, like, because if people see police hat, it's also really straightforward. That's a police.
Yeah.
If you hear a voice that's really strict, it can be anyone. So I think for you, it benefits you that you don't have the visual information in terms of theater nights. And I think that's why they're so popular. But in terms of game nights and Dungeons and Dragons, the same principle applies, because in Dungeons and Dragons, it's not so much about what's on the board than what's in the story.
yeah.
And the story, like the game master tells the story. So it's pretty much, it doesn't matter if you see, if you don't see, you need to use your imagination anyway. So that's really cool. Liia, do you have any comments?
Yes, actually, I was starting to think about it, that we just had the Christmas play. And when we rehearse the thing, like people are doing like what they're doing, and then they put on the costumes, and like they're not themselves anymore. Then they are the characters. Yeah, it like for us, it's about the costumes and getting into the role better when you have like the.
Yeah, putting on makeup
Yes.
for the character, putting on the costume for the character, and putting everything else. So yeah, that is really, really important to have this information. But I think this is where we have, for example, I know that there have been and probably will be as well projects with theater and music in general, where people with disability and people without disability come together, because this is something that can kind of break the mind for someone who doesn't have any disability, because you go beyond that. Like people who don't see, you go beyond that, and you just break our minds in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, it's only way how I can explain it to you, because when you first you understand you need to work with people who don't see, and you have used to working with people like with loads of visual information. It's so hard to kind of break your mindset in a way that like first it's like there's nothing left. Yeah.
Or it just seems too difficult.
Yeah,
like
what's
that task? You have to try it.
It's not even difficult. It's just like there's no solution for this. Like nothing I know works. And then you kind of think about it more and read about it more, or just like in general, just like put your mindset to it and talk. I think for me it was easier than for Liia, because I had people with side disability around, and I could just throw ideas around and see what works, what doesn't. So that gave me the first step ahead.
Yeah, for me it was like when I have an idea, I was like typing Madaru. So will this work? Like, okay, try this material. Like, can they read them? Can they read this material with the equipment that they have? Like, because like so close but yet so far.
Yeah, I think in general, if you go back to obviously everything we talked about, this has happened like in terms of 9 months that we did our project, and if we circle back to what we have achieved in this project, and I think that we have both organizations have gained loads, and like I think our youngsters, especially those who are, as we call them, youth workers, who are taking on this more responsibility and the role of leading the organization, you actually have been really successful, and I think it's so nice to see that you do the same theater nights, the game nights, everything else, but you do them, and there are people who are interested, and we have new and new members appearing, and I think it's just fantastic. And I think for Liia, a brain changer has been done.
Yes, absolutely. Like to think outside the box that you're like used to living in, and like doing the things like you start to like notice small things, like for example, like for the bingo we needed the numbers, from 1 to 75, and I was actually like we found the numbers when we printed them, and then I went to get the package from the parcel machine. I was like, there are numbers, and there are braille numbers on the doors. Like I have never seen this, but like you start to notice, like, okay, why aren't there like anything in braille on this door? Or like we go to the mayor's office, like why isn't there like no signs, or like you start to notice the little things, like or think about like in a different way. Because so thank you all for this awesome experience.
I do that, but with buildings. Whenever I go into a new building, I'm like, it's already like so into me. It's like unconsciously, I'm just like checking if the stairs have been marked, if there are unmarked like glass doors or something. Yeah. It's just like it comes to me automatically. Okay, Dinārs, maybe you can describe to us what have you gained, like what's the biggest gains you have from our collaboration with Muhu?
So the biggest gain is that honestly the information that has been gained in terms of from Muhu and the first time we went to Estonia, and we learned a lot about youth organizations in general, because we didn't have an understanding about youth organizations before that, and then later with activities where people came and gave their thoughts, and then with the project we had in Valmiera as well, where we got to exchange different thoughts about youth organizations, also with Muhu youth as well. Like what are good parts, what do we remember from this project, and then what do we want to like try in our own organizations, and that is where game nights actually mostly came from the project in Valmiera, because we had a lot of fun with the Muhu youth, and then we played the game Mafia, and that was the first game we actually played in game night. We wanted to try it. We tried it. We got some feedback from the people who came, and we repeated that again to make the game night more interesting. Then, since there were a lot of situations where people liked explaining or even like go into a bit of fantasy type of stories, we thought about theater nights. Like, hey, that actually could be very fun. Like, so people can really like go out of their comfort zone, almost maybe even go out of their comfort zone and try to express themselves basically through the means of theatrical performances.
Okay, that sounds so good that I'm just checking all the aims of the project in my head, being like tick, tick, tick.
Of course, social media as well, like Facebook. Before there was a Facebook group, it has grown a lot. Like sometimes looking at the percentage, it looks very impressive.
I think the right word for that, it has transformed.
Yeah, transformed. Yeah.
For me to give a quick overview, we started with the ground zero, I would like to say. So we started with an existing like organization that existed on a paper and had been quiet for years. So thanks to you guys, we have more than like around 15 youngsters now who are like participating, or even more.
A lot more. Especially now there are a lot of situations where youngsters just come up to me, like ask, when's the next game night? And they haven't been to the game nights, and they're more from school. They're like between the ages of 14 and 16, and they find out people don't just go there and okay, this event ended. They come back from that event and tell other people about that event.
I think this is the biggest rate of success. If the mouth-to-mouth word happening, then you understand and you've done a good job. But yeah, so we have, I think it's around 20 or something we have in. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that I feel like this is like the organization has started to live at the moment, and what you have done like outside the project with all the game nights and theater nights and also collaboration with the theater, it's a really, really good thing to keep moving on. Like this is a stepping stone. Like you've done a great job because you've taken in all the information we have achieved, we given to you, and also at the moment, like thanks to Muhu, we have loads of different new attributes that we can use, unique ones. Nowhere in the world they exist except for us.
Big flex.
Big flex. So yeah, I think we can kind of wrap around, right? We started with the visual information and we kind of transformed into this project, but it's not something different because youth work and visual information is something that we can't detach one from each other. So I want to say big thanks to all of you who participated today, and we still have some time left in the project, but I'm really looking forward to checking Facebook and seeing what both youth organizations are up to, because I'm old and I'm using Facebook. But yeah, it's a really, really nice feeling to see that there are youngsters who are working, and I think the biggest, not even achievement, but the biggest pride of mine is that to see that you do it without us being like pushy, like then that's something that's really good. So yeah, good job.
I only have one question left. When is the next game night?
We missed it. It was last Saturday.
Yeah, it was last Saturday. Next is either theater or the Dungeon and Dragon meeting, because I got some messages like, "Hey, when is the meeting happening?" And then because people right now we have a small group of people, but it's best if we meet up all together and actually like really start forming the idea to a reality. Like maybe some. This is the interesting part. textile visual information. Basically, so you can feel how the game would maybe work or something like that. So it's almost like you visualize it in your head by touching, yeah. So
that's going to be interesting.
That's a different.
So you think the next meeting is going to be in this year, or is it the next year's goal?
Most likely this year, because it's winter break. So if people will be, I mean, it's we're not gonna take like 15 people or 10 people and just talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're gonna first plan it out and then take a few people who are the most interested in it.
Okay, so I don't know if we're gonna actually manage to get the podcast out until Christmas break, but
Merry Christmas, just in case.
Just in case, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. But also, if anyone who hears this wants to join, just look it up. Look for Latvijas Neredzīgo biedrības, jauniešu organizācija, and come join and talk to Dinārs or anyone else who's there, and then just be active and have good times.
Have a good vibe.
And a good vibe. Okay, thank you, and that's it.
Well, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Projekts Education is Key tiek finansēts ar Eiropas Komisijas Erasmus+ maza izmēra partnerību pieaugušo izglītībā, kuru Latvijā administrē Valsts izglītības attīstības aģentūra.